Hello, thank you for watching this webinar on insurance provisions in commercial leases. Now, this isn't an area which should be problematic, and it should be fairly straightforward, and it is in most cases. But the trick is spotting the cases where something isn't quite right. And it may be that the landlord, I'm assuming in this lease that you're mainly acting for a tenant, the landlord is just being a bit cagey about stuff and doesn't have any great wish to warn you about issues about this property, and they just want to get your client in and paying the rent. And the sort of scenarios that this would apply is where, say, there's a problem with the building, or it could be that there is for example, a flooding issue or a terrorism issue, and they just want to get some income, and your client just wants the keys normally. So normally it's okay, and it should be okay if you use standard documents, but just got to check these things through. So let's go back to first principles and see what's out there to help you on this. So normally the landlord will insure rather than the tenant insure. It's very rare for a tenant to insure. The only situation that you might have a tenant insuring would be if it's, say, a long 100-year ground rent lease or something of that nature. But even then, often the landlord will insure because they want to get some commission on the insurance. And there have been cases on that. I will look at the most recent one later. So it's normal for the landlord to insure the whole building. And if it's a multi-let building, they will still generally insure. And the general idea as a landlord is that you get your rent as a clear rent, free of all deductions. So everything like insurance and service charges gets passed on to the tenant. Now, under the lease, there is usually a specific obligation for the tenant to pay the insurance. Now, obviously, the landlord wants to make sure that it is insured. They can't rely on the tenant to insure it, because if the building burnt down and the tenant hadn't insured it when it was the tenant's obligation, what is the landlord going to do? He's going to sue the tenant. They may not have any money, so he's more likely to keep it in his own control.